Hi, this is Learning Theories by Juliana Fischetti and Isabella Ponce. So for our first slide, we're going to be covering behaviorism, which focuses on the idea that all behaviors are learned through interactions with the environment. So there are three major types of learning, the first being classical conditioning, which is a reference to the famous Pavlov dog's experiment, which basically is when you pair a potent stimulus with a neutral stimulus. So the example is every time the dog hears the bell ring, it starts to salivate because food is put in front of it the first few times and it starts to learn. So it starts to learn that behavior, and that is the definition of behavioral psychology. So the next would be operant conditioning, which is a process by which humans and animals learn to behave in such a way as to obtain a reward and punishment. And avoid punishment, rather. So that is basically essentially your grades. When you don't hand in assignments, you are getting bad grades, and you will learn from that behavior that if you were to not hand in assignments, that you will get bad grades. And this is really important, I think, when it comes to online learning, because a lot of students weren't really doing their work or doing the bare minimum, and teachers were still tending to give them good grades over COVID, and a lot of students learned that they could get away with not doing assignments. And as we started to evolve with our online teaching, students are starting to get away with that less and less, and that behavior is not being conditioned over and over again. So students are starting to get frustrated because what they once thought was okay is not okay, and that definitely needs to change in the online setting. And next would be observational learning, which is a process by watching the behaviors of others. So this is when people or young children will mimic people that they think are either important or they think are getting their point across, or for any sort of reason, children tend to mimic parents. But this is really important for teachers and for educational professionals because they are in a setting where they could be mimicked or they are seen as important and professional. So it's always important to have that guard on for when students or children are watching you, because they learn from you and they copy you and your mistakes. So next would be cognitivism theory, which focuses on the internal process surrounding information and memory. So it kind of just focuses on how information is received, organized, and stored in the mind. So basically, there are 4 stages, and these aren't necessarily, I would say, like educational stages, more as maturity stages. So the sensory motor stage, I believe, is from 0 to 2 years old. The pre-proportional stage is from 2 to 7. Concrete operational stage is 7 to 11, and formal operational stage is 11 years old through adulthood. Now, why this is really important is because our brain basically stores information differently as we mature. You start to get a bigger grasp on what you find important and what you don't find important. And this is where education is extremely important, because people start to learn whether they deem education important and whether to save those facts and those things that they are learning from school. And when we were online for a short period of time, and even now, I think a lot of people were choosing to not focus on education and not building up those early stages that tell you that education is important and teach your mind how to store that memory and that internal process of how to process information and how to relay it later in life. So next would be constructivism theory, where the learner builds on personal experience. So constructivism theory basically believes that you need to construct your knowledge rather than just like passively taking on information, rather than hearing fun facts or quotes and being expected to just understand them. That's why in text citations, citating work, trying to find the bigger idea are all very big parts of constructivism theory. So there are different types, them being cognitive, social, and radical. So cognitive use learning as the process of constructing meaning. It is how people make sense of their experience. So a really good way to do that, which we covered earlier, was doing blogs rather than posts. Blogging is much more instrumental than posting, because blogging is rather stating your opinions and feelings rather than just responding to some sort of prompt, along with blogging being out to the world rather than just to a few people. And blogging is also a great way to find out other people's opinions, and it kind of gives you experience that you would be limited to without information and technology. You would never hear someone's experience from really another country unless you traveled there or read a book from it, but now with blogging and the internet you can. So social constructivism focuses on the collaborative nature of learning, how knowledge develops from how people interact with each other. So people doing that, essentially blogging, hearing about each other's opinions and building your own opinion off of that, or editing your own opinion, which most people don't change their opinion, but most will edit or at least before you've even formulated an opinion, social constructivism can allow you to formulate maybe a more educated opinion, giving you experience prior to coming up with your own perspective. Then there will be radical constructivism, which is the idea that all learning must be constructive. There is no textbooks, no nothing. It is a bit of a harder theory to get behind. It is essentially what fuels subjects like mathematics, where textbooks, while helpful, are just not going to 100% teach you what you need to know. You really do need somebody teaching you either through a screen or in person those big, heavy-hitting, big ideas and topics to really get some of that higher level math across. So next, we're going to move on to connectivism, where the learner is self-directed. So it's a relatively new learning theory that suggests students should combine thoughts, theories, and general information in a useful manner, and it's very big with being technology-driven. So it has 4 key principles, one of them being autonomy. So autonomy is a really weird one and a new one that I think my personal generation experiences a lot, and that's based on validation. So that being that when you do something good, that you should have that validation there, and that used to be a lot of grades. A lot of people getting the good grade would be that validation. It's that connectivism, that connecting thought that when I do put in the effort and I do well, I see that outcome of being the A, of being the good grade. But a lot of people lack that actually outside of grades, and that's something that definitely needs to improve from educators and parents, reinforcing that you've done a good job. The grade doesn't really matter. My opinion of you is really great, and you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. Next would be connectedness. Connectedness kind of just goes along with that you really need to have other people talking. This even connects to constructivism, that you really need to be learning with other people and seeing other people around you learning in the same facet as you. If you see somebody else is teaching themselves, going to lectures online, doing their own thing, it'll inspire you to do the same thing. You feel connected to others, knowing that they are learning and doing the same thing as you. You don't feel like you're isolated and alone in the way that you are teaching yourself and the way that you are not doing things the best. And next would be diversity. And that really comes down to learning through a bunch of different methods, so trying a bunch of different ways. A lot of people don't realize that there are about 3 or 4 different ways to learn: auditory, visual, that type of thing. Some people are a combination of the two, and they don't really apply one of those ways to the way they learn. They kind of dabble in all, and that is fine, because when you grow up and when you have different classes and different professors that prefer different approaches, that's a great way to be experienced to every single type and not be biased or only really good at one type. And then next would be openness, which is really just being open to any opinion, any type of learning style, any information that you received, and not being necessarily instantly critical of it if it is not your opinion, because that's what really shapes and matures your own perspective, and it really makes you look at things in a different light. I think a lot of people tend to ignore that, and with technology, people are exposed to different opinions than their own a good amount, and I don't think they take it the right way. And this connectivism openness theory approach, it allows you to learn that when I see that thing that I don't agree with automatically, to first sit back, reread it a first time, compare it against your own perspective, and think for a second, well, maybe they're right, and reimburse your own perspective on the topic. And if you don't agree with it, then you don't agree with it, but at least make that connective effort with their thought, with their theory, with what they're saying first, before you just jump off the boat and disagree with it. So I just wanted to cover the redundancy principle, which is one of Mayer's 12 principles of multimedia, which we established in our project together. So we chose and selected words and phrases on each slide that we thought were most important to catch the attention of the audience, rather than try to squeeze a bunch of content on all the slides, and this helps the audience stay focused and engaged while increasing their attention. So if you didn't notice, for each slide, we basically listed out the 3 core of each theory that is currently known to date, and we explained each of them and how they can be used in a technology type of setting or in a classroom, in person or online. So we didn't really want to overwhelm you with me just reading a bunch of text off the slide. That's how people look away. That's so they don't engage with those theories of learning in the first place. It doesn't instill good behavior, and it doesn't allow anyone to construct upon what I'm saying or what's there. You see what the words are, and then you hear what I have to say, and you can combine the two and construct your own opinion, belief, thought, experience on what I'm saying. So thank you so much for hearing me. Here's our works cited. And this is me and Juliana